Welcome back to Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jeremy Lapidus. If you are just tuning in, we just finished talking about Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers. The New York Jets. Got the wrong team there. He is missing minicamp. It's an unexcused absence. We'll talk a little bit about. We talked a little bit about how that might affect them heading into the season. We also talked in the NBA about the impact of Jerry West as he unfortunately passed away at 86 this morning, and we talked about Kristaps Porzingis being questionable and what that might mean for the Celtics heading into Game 3 tonight. But we are going to move into the MLB, into baseball, for the rest of the show today. We're going to start off with a trade. Our second big trade of the MLB season, the Blue Jays make a trade with the Dodgers. The Dodgers add Calvin Biggio for a minor league pitcher. Biggio has been struggling a little bit, and we'll talk a little bit more about the implications of that in just a second. But before we do, remember that if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net. Leave a tip or donation with a message in it. That message should pop up on the bottom of the screen for you, me, and everybody else around the world to see. If you do have a burning question about sports, anything at all you'd like to talk about, go ahead and throw that in the comments, in the chat. I will get to it as soon as I possibly can. Appreciate all of you guys for sticking around and talking some sports with me here on a beautiful Wednesday afternoon. But like I was saying, we are going to get into some baseball here, and baseball season is heating up. We've started to hit summer, bats are starting to go, and we have a trade. The Blue Jays make a trade with the Dodgers, sending Biggio to LA for a minor league pitcher. And the Blue Jays are a very interesting team, right? If you look at their lineup, you say, hey, they should be good. They could compete for the playoffs. You have Vlad Guerrero Jr., who just a couple years ago was top 3 in MVP voting. You have Bo Bichette at shortstop, who's a great rising young star, and the pitching staff has been solid. Kikuchi has been great on the mound for the Blue Jays, and they have top 3 Cy Young voting. They had a couple Cy Young finalists last year that are still pitching in that lineup. This is a team that should be good, and yet they're not. And this is a team that has had a lot of rumors around them being sellers at the deadline. I think this is the first step towards it. Now, obviously, we still have about a month until the trade deadline is, but Biggio, who was on the 40-man roster, gets traded to the Dodgers. The Dodgers, who don't have as huge a lead in the NL West as they kind of want to right now. The bottom of their order has been struggling a little bit. They've been hurt a little bit. Adding a utility outfielder like Biggio is something that will help them. Now, like I said, he wasn't having a great season. He was hitting 200 on the offensive side. So, you're not going to get too much in return for him. But I think what this signals more than the Dodgers trying to get better, which, of course, they're trying to win a World Series. This is a cheap rental for a guy who is kind of having a down year, can turn it around. Instead of, looking at it this way, this is more a case study on the Blue Jays, right? Because the big question of the trade deadline really centers around them. Are they going to move off their stars? They haven't really paid a lot of them yet. They're kind of at the point where if they wanted to, and this era really hasn't been working out too well for them. They had that run in 2021. They've made the playoffs a couple times as wild cards, but they haven't really had a deep playoff run yet, and they're continuing to struggle year over year. They're not getting better. They're getting worse as a team, and that's not where you want to be as a young team. This is still a very young team. They made a couple trades that kind of blew up in their faces. They made one with the Arizona Diamondbacks last season that obviously the Diamondbacks ended up making the World Series, and they were not nearly as successful. They've made a couple of interesting moves, ones that have not worked out for them, and now they have they kind of have to make a decision. Are they going to blow it up? And I feel like this move kind of signals that they are. I'm curious what kind of trade compensation they can get for Vlad Guerrero. There were trade talks for him already. I wasn't sure if it had progressed that far, but some stuff came out in the last couple weeks about uh, about some potential trade talks there. Uh, Bo Bichette already had some trade rumors swirling around him. His contract is expiring sooner. They can get a good haul and they can get a solid rebuild going if they trade some of these guys. A quick rebuild is something that's, you know, very important in a baseball team, right? You can kind of be in the dredges in the in the chambers of the MLB for a long time, especially as a smaller market team. Toronto isn't drawing all these great free agents. It's not in New York. It's not in LA. They're not going to be able to draw these huge free agents. They need to build from within. And being able to get all these assets in a trade, kind of like the Washington Nationals did with Juan Soto and Trey Turner and Max Scherzer. They were coming off a World Series. They flipped all their assets, and now they're probably about a year or two away from being competitive again. Just a real quick rebuild process. And I think that's kind of what the doctor's prescribing here for the Blue Jays. And it sucks. It's not an easy decision to make. You don't want to be that front office that pulls the trigger on blowing up a young team like this that still you can see the talent, still you can see the potential in, and it not work. Right? There's no such thing as a guarantee in baseball. Right? There's no such thing as a guaranteed prospect, and you're not going to get, a top tier major league player for these guys. You're gonna get some younger guys in the minors that top in their systems, but you're not gonna get like a current major league player for these guys. So it's a big risk to take, and it's never easy. Like I said, it's never easy to be that team, be that front office, be that GM, be that coaching staff that says, hey, we can't do it. It's time to start over, especially when it's still kind of up in the air. But a lot of times that's the best thing to do. And that I feel like that's the situation that the Blue Jays find themselves in right now, right? It's going to sting. It really is. They have a lot to give up. They have a lot of really good players that they can give up and get a lot back in return. If they want a quick rebuild, and maybe I'm giving up too fast on this team. They made an all-in push just a couple seasons ago, you know, and it didn't work out. And once you make that all-in push, you kind of have to know when to fold and go back. And I think now's the time for the Blue Jays. There's still a month for them to turn it around. And anything can happen in a month of baseball. Like I said, nothing in baseball is a guarantee. And this Biggio trade isn't a huge trade that's really shifting the power balance in Toronto or in LA. But it's something to kind of keep an eye on as like a signal flare for what the Blue Jays might do. They're having these trade discussions. They're thinking about it. And thinking about it is the first step to actually doing it, obviously. So we'll see what happens. Like I said, I think it's time to blow it up for Toronto, and I think this might be this might be time for the Blue Jays to blow it up. We'll see what happens though. A month until the trade deadline. We'll follow more on that. There's plenty of other baseball stories, just like Juan Soto, who is entering who's just like Juan Soto, who's entering into free agency this offseason. He is the next big thing to enter the free agent market. Obviously, we had Aaron Judge, his running mate right now, entered just 2 years ago, and Shohei Ohtani, both as the big whales, and now it's Juan Soto. We're going to take a look at what experts say his contract might look like, and talk a little bit about some precedents that were set even with him beforehand. So stick around for that. We'll be right back here on Sports by GSMC Podcast Network.